Bivix Wealth and Insurance Solutions. Together with Secure65 Health Plans, where seniors thrive. Presents Health, Wealth, and Heart. Our hosts, Alicia Alcano and Monet Swan. Our special guests are Michael Lewis and his son, Zack Lewis. Michael Lewis is a Chief Behavioral Officer and Senior Financial Advisor at Family Legacy Financial Solutions. He brings extensive expertise for supporting families with relatives facing addictions, mental health, and aging disorders, as well as the practitioners who care for them. Michael is the contributing author to Amazon's #1 bestseller, The Caregiver's Advocate, available on Amazon. Zack Lewis is the Director of Community Outreach for Family Legacy Financial Solutions. He brings a dynamic combination of Wall Street expertise and entrepreneurial energy to his role at Family Legacy Financial Solutions. Today, our guests are Michael Lewis and Zack Lewis. Welcome. Welcome to the Secure65 Health Plans podcast. Hello. It is so good to be back. Happy New Year. For those of you who didn't miss our first one, you weren't there? That's okay. This one is good too. We've got some people here. We are so excited. And, first of all, let me say hello, Alicia Alcano. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How about you, Monet Swan?
I am so thrilled. And let me just say this. You guys know how you just despise talking to people about finance. Why? Oh, they're so boring. And they show me all the negative things I don't want to see. Well, today we're going to turn this around so you get involved, get engaged, and participate in growing your wealth, keeping your family together, and making it fun. So I want to welcome you to a thoughtful exploration of aging, mental health, and financial well-being. At Secure65 Health Plans, we are committed to connecting our audience with experts who approach senior care with compassion, expertise, and a profound dedication to service. So today we have the privilege of welcoming a remarkable father and son duo, Michael Lewis and his son Zack, who have devoted their careers to helping individuals and families navigate the complexities of aging, mental health, and addiction disorders. Their work, it bridges the financial, emotional, and practical aspects of aging, ensuring that individuals receive their guidance, all the guidance that they need to do that transition thing through life's later stages with dignity and security. So let me first start by telling you a little bit about Michael Lewis. Michael Lewis is the Chief Behavioral Officer and Senior Financial Advisor at Family Legacy Financial Solutions. As one of the foremost experts in behavioral finance and elder care planning, Michael specializes in assisting families, caregivers, and healthcare professionals with the financial and logistical challenges associated with mental health, addiction recovery, and aging-related disorders. With an impressive Wall Street career, Michael has managed billion-dollar investment portfolios. Pretty cool, huh? And pioneered advanced financial strategies. While his expertise has traditionally served high net worth clients, he has made it his mission to extend the same level of financial acumen and strategic planning to families navigating the financial burdens of aging and long-term care. His commitment to this work is deeply personal, stemming from his experience as both a caregiver and a parent of a child in recovery. These lived experiences have given him a unique perspective on the intersections of financial security, caregiving responsibilities, and emotional resilience, making his approach both empathetic and highly practical. Michael is also the contributing author of The Caregiver's Advocate and the founder of financial caregiving resource LinkedIn Community, where he provides invaluable insights into those managing financial and caregiver responsibilities. So join us as we explore critical conversations on financial planning, mental health, addiction recovery, and the evolving landscape of aging with Michael Lewis and his son, two dedicated professionals making a meaningful impact in the senior care space. So now, Alicia, tell our audience a little bit about Zack and his accomplishments.
Oh, I would love to tell you about Zack. Zack is a proud graduate of University of Tampa with a degree in finance. Zack's leadership journey began early as the founder of the University Investment Club and Financial Management Association chapter. Over the course of his career, Zack has worn many hats, from analyst roles at Goldman Sachs and InnoCap H Mark to leading business development for the largest mortgage team in the US. He has also served as a trusted consultant for multiple SaaS startups and as the managing partner of the Senior Focus Insurance Agency. What brought Zack back to financial planning was deeply personal, inspired by his father's role as Chief Behavioral Officer at Family Legacy. Zack discovered his passion for helping families navigate the challenges of substance abuse, mental health struggles, and aging-related disorders. At Cywork, Zack has always embraced adventure and service. He played internationally competitive hockey in his younger years and spent time in the Colorado mountains volunteering to rescue and care for wolves and wolf dogs, experiences that shaped his value of discipline, compassion, and resilience. Welcome, Michael and Zack, to today's webinar.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks
for having us.
We are thrilled because, you guys are doing something that most people don't hear about, right? You either do finance or you do mental health. You're either a caregiver and you're needing help, or you're a caregiver who wants to give help, but the people who need it can't afford it, or they didn't plan properly. Would that be the best way of saying it, you guys? They didn't plan for this day that ultimately is going to come. So, Michael, I'll start with you. What does a holistic financial consultation entail? And how does it differ from traditional financial planning?
That's a great question. Family Legacy believes deeply that it's the planning that provides the value, right? We all need to manage assets. We all need to, look at everything, so to speak. But primarily, most of the advisors are much more geared towards how much do you have and how much will they make if they manage it. Holistic financial planning, on the other hand, is very much entwined with understanding your story, right? Everything we do here is predicated on who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. And what do you know and what do you not know going forward? So, for example, we all know, God willing, we're going to age, hopefully age gracefully, but it isn't always the case. And quite frankly, it'd be very easy to do planning if we all knew when we were going to die and we knew what the journey looked like ahead of plan, but we don't.
Right.
Case in point, when I first, my family first had experience with this is with our son, Zack, who unfortunately had, fall under the spell of substance use disorder. And we struggled for years trying to navigate the environment, the ecosystem. This was at a time where financial resources were limited. Insurance companies did not pay for this, so everything was out of pocket. And we had no idea what the journey looked like. So, like every other parent, I suspect, when they're first presented with this kind of problem, we thought, well, if we can get them in the right place and pay whatever it takes for the one shot, he'll come back. We'll have our family. We can put this behind. It never works that way. The first step is just one in a series of journeys. And I remember one time someone had asked me, because I'm so involved with finance, he goes, "Would you be so interested in finance if your son had cancer?" And I go, "Absolutely." Because at the end of the day, we need to take care of our family. We need to take care of everybody in the family. And if
Yes.
resources are a constraint, which for many families it is, you have
Mhm.
to make tough decisions. We didn't know that. So what did we do? We dug deep into our savings and we got him through the first program. And lo and behold, when it was all over, the uh, the administrator asked us, "Okay, so what's your recovery plan now? Where do you go from here?" And I go, "I don't know. Why don't you tell me?" He goes, "Well, we don't. So please pick him up and good luck."
Wow.
It does not have to be that way. And the reason that I started this practice was one, uh, fortunately for us, our story ends well. Doesn't end.
Yes.
I take it back. We're in a good place. I don't think Zach was always ready for this, nor did he necessarily want it. But he has made tremendous strides, and I'm proud to have him by my side. It was my motivation to do this business in the first place, to help other families that were going through this who had no clue what was going on or what the journey ahead lied, to give them both kind of a futuristic look of what the path is, but also a way forward. Most people get so overwhelmed with finances, and to be honest, it happened in my family where I would fight with my wife about Zach, and I'd even sometimes take it out on him. And I wasn't really mad at him, and I really wasn't mad at my wife. But what I was really mad at is just the financial strain that we were under, and I had no other channel to take out my frustrations. Um, we're that channel now. People need to understand, one, this is a tough journey. Don't try to do it alone. Your shoulders are just not broad enough and not strong enough to take this burden by yourself. As a family member, you need to concentrate solely on of healing the family, right? That's your number one priority.
Yeah.
And when you are so charged emotionally, because literally some of the decisions you're making are life and death, right? Don't have a
Right.
lot of time to think about it. But when we make decisions under stress, we make poor decisions. And so we
Okay.
want to be here to be the sounding board, right? We can be the dispassionate person who looks at the numbers and just interprets what we see, and then overlay our knowledge and experience on it to come up with a plan to move forward. And when you're dealing with elder care, when you're dealing with special needs, of which we believe strongly that substance use disorder is just another form of special needs, uh,
Absolutely.
the planning that goes on, the estate planning that people generally don't think about. I think I read somewhere that across the US, probably 60% don't even have wills. Uh,
Yes.
when you're thinking about leaving money to somebody who is troubled, leaving it directly is probably not a good idea.
Yes.
Money is a trigger. It is both a blessing and a curse, and it needs to be managed and it needs to be respected. It's before the meeting, Zach was talking to you a little bit about tigers and wolves, about how you need to know who your adversary is, and you need to be strong and forward. Well, when you're going through this by yourself, you're anything but. And so you will be
Absolutely.
surrounded by the poor players in the space. Zach can certainly share some details about Florida. It's a wild west for recovery, right? Very little regulations,
Yeah.
very little quality of care. There's been a lot of work in the years since I've been involved where there are now companies that are asking these facilities to provide proof of efficiency, efficacy is the word I'm looking for the program
Yes.
they do. And it's very important because now that insurance is starting to pick up some of the costs, what they are looking at is to make sure that the facility that you're in is proven to be successful. And so and by the way, when you participate in this and you get a good score, then you can also attract more money to help maintain the facility and improve the quality of the care. In
And
Florida,
that's the way it should be, right? I mean, automatically you run it like a business. So keep them responsible, hold them accountable to what they're doing and the service that they're providing. And I think, like you were saying, when you talk about, you know, how people take advantage of those who don't know. That's the reason you guys are here, because people don't know. And because they don't know, they get taken advantage of at their most vulnerable times, Michael, which just breaks my heart. We need to have people understand there are strategies, there are people, there are organizations that they can trust. And I think that is what makes it so exciting that you guys are going to come here. And, Zack, I really want to hear from you with respect to strategies, because I know you have so much experience on both sides, right? On dealing with the institutions, dealing with Wall Street, dealing with wolves that are really wolves. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
So, I mean, listen, the journey for those who, unfortunately have, substance abuse as part of their life is, an interesting one. And you get some of the most interesting stories in the world by talking to people who've gone through some pretty difficult and challenging situations. And I think it took a lot for me to, grow up and over the years and going through things and, recovery in itself and learning to think about other people other than yourself to kind of gauge the sort of significant impact that the things that I was doing, had on, people I was friends with or those that, I love and care about, like my family and the things it did to them. When your, father, for example, you worked on Wall Street on the trading floor and had to take a call, because I'm in the hospital and having to be in an open floor and answering those kind of questions. I mean, it's a very difficult position to put your family and someone in, not only on a personal level, but on a professional level.
Sure.
But, a lot of the support, and I think, that translates between whether it's mental health, substance abuse, or aging disorders as well, is, understanding some of the boundaries and interactions with the ones that we love and the ones that we're trying to care for. And I guess you use the kind of the metaphor that he spoke about when it comes to working with, large animals like wolves or big cats, and respecting what they are when you're working with them is the best way to actually work with them, and respect somebody who has substance abuse in their life, or has an aging disorder in their life, and respecting that for what it is. For example, one of the stories that, I like to share in terms of when it was the biggest moment for me, and probably one of the hardest moments for him was, there was a period of time where, after the glitz and glamour of Wall Street and some of the other things that I did, the substance abuse took me down. I was homeless. And I remember, my dad came to visit with, my uncle and cousin, and we went for lunch, and I literally had no money. I mean, I was living in my car for, 2 nights while I was trying to get into, another house.
Yeah.
And I asked him for $20 because, I didn't have anything to eat. I had like $1 in my bank account or whatever.
Right.
And, he told me no. He said, listen, I love you. You're a smart kid. You'll figure it out, but I can't do this anymore. And I can't keep giving you, that kind of thing. And wouldn't give me $20 to feed myself. It probably wouldn't have gone to food anyway. But, the point of it being was, that kind of, it was the first time where I was like, yeah, I mean, listen, it was the first time that it was like, there was no parachute. There was no soft landing, like this was like, now it was really, whatever I have is what I have, and whatever I'm going to get, I'm going to have to get myself, by doing the suggestions that were offered by people who came before me that have gone through it and live, happy, healthy, successful, lives in all aspects of their life. And you take their suggestions and you do what they say, and you put them into practice, and things tend to go well. And, it takes time. It's not necessarily overnight.
No.
The first little bit is brutal. But over time, as you follow all the cheesy sayings that are said, in the rooms and in treatment and things like that, like one day at a time, it's true. You take it, moment by moment, day by day, and you make these, new lifestyle changes into habits in terms of how you interact with others, how you treat people, how you treat yourself. And over time, the fruits of that labor, you have the opportunity to be able to glean from, and that becomes your new way of life. And it's a lot less miserable. It's a lot less dangerous, and it's a lot more, productive and beneficial for you and everyone else around you. Right. So,
Right. So,
yeah.
Zack, what specific tools or strategies do you use to support families navigating these challenges on the financial end? Are there certain things that are your go-to strategies to help them get back on their feet?
I think the biggest thing that, probably between, my dad does most of the financial work. I'm much more in terms of like marketing and,
Okay.
getting the message out and helping, with educational outreach and initiatives that we do.
Well, that's wonderful,
And
though. I
works
mean,
and
we
all that
need
kind of
that.
stuff,
Without the
right?
outreach, there is no message. Somebody's got to talk
Totally.
about
Yeah. I
it.
mean, yeah. I mean, someone's got to know that you exist, right? I mean, otherwise, if
Yeah.
they don't know you exist, they can't take advantage of the help. And so I think it kind of goes to the point that he made before, which a lot of it is just, I think the first thing that comes back is compassion and empathy, right? Most people, whether it's, mental health, substance abuse, aging disorders, whatever, I think the first thing that lacks in most financial institutions is empathy and
Yes.
compassion for like the circumstance that people are going through. Like, yeah, like kind of like my dad said, you look at other, a lot of other firms. It's what assets do you have? What can I manage? What are the fees I can generate from you? As opposed to, wow, you're really going through a really difficult situation that we happen to have been through before, and we can empathize with, and we can understand, and we can listen, and we can share stories, and talk about what's going on for you and what are you doing, and give you some suggestions based on our experience or introductions to people in the industry that we know because of how long we've been around it, and being that sort of resource that was missing from our lives, and through compassion and empathy first. And then going into the financial stuff and going into strategies and budgeting and all that kind of stuff. But I think being that ear and that kind heart or what have you to that they feel like they're not alone on this
Yes.
journey, and that there are people that can help them not only navigate but also help them feel better about their own circumstances as they're going through it is huge. I think that comes probably more important. I don't know if it's more important, but it's the way that leads to all the other pieces of the puzzle coming together, and the rest of the plan being applied and integrated into their life is because you work with people who understand and empathize what you're going through. It's kind of like when you're when you have if when I was in active addiction or what have you, if someone it's very hard to work with a therapist to get through these struggles, especially if the therapist has never been through it. You
Right.
don't understand me. You may have read books about what
Not
people
the
like me
same.
are or whatever, right? And
Right.
theory and stuff like that. But the
Yep.
one thing that always makes, the rooms and things like that so beneficial and so successful and things like that is it's the first time you walk in and you meet all these people who actually get you and who have done the same thing that you have done or far worse, and make you look at your own situation like, oh, well, I thought I was bad. That guy was an absolute train wreck, and look at him now, right? So
Right.
there's
Oh,
empathy and understanding, yeah, and there's hope because you have this person who's been down the same track. And so
right.
when someone is coming to us with like a financial planning need or what have you, how do I put all these things in place? How do I cover the cost of care for my father, my son, my sister, whatever the case is? Now that when they are able to talk to us, like, oh, for example, my dad had to help with my mom and her father when he had dementia and Alzheimer's, or with me and substance abuse. It's the same thing. It's not we're not theorizing how to help you,
Correct.
or be able to listen and be able to share and provide empathetic support. Like, we genuinely been down the road. Here's what our experience was like. Here's what worked for us, and you kind of have that same type of outcome as a result.
Well, and see, Michael, now I got to bring you back in here because the thing that's interesting is you've taken the experience on the financial side, which we all know everything's always separate. Finances are over here, addictions are over there, health is over here, dementia's over here, aging's over here. Everything has its pocket, but you brought them all together. So tell me a little bit about the dementia aspect in your family, because now we're going into a whole nother realm of how seniors are treated. And we have a lot of seniors that don't understand the preparation makes the difference as to what your golden years look like, if they're tarnished or not, because the preparation hasn't been put there. And even if it hasn't, there are people that will help you deal with what you have to get into a better place. Would that be an appropriate way of saying it, Michael?
Yeah, that is very good. And let me share a story to embellish a little bit on the points that you made. I'm going to say about 16 years ago, my mother-in-law passed away. But before she passed, she told my wife to keep an eye on her dad because something didn't seem right. Now, she didn't know
Mm,
what that meant. And when, my mother-in-law passed away, while she was keeping an eye out for him, everything seemed to be fine. He was going to work, and he worked in commercial real estate. That's a very high pressure job.
yes.
He was taking himself to and from his apartment in Riverdale, coming to downtown Manhattan. He was getting on the buses by himself. He was going to classes. He was keeping himself engaged. It was a wonderful thing. And as he recovered after the loss of his, uh, wife of many years, he actually found himself in another relationship. But as his health started to deteriorate, and it was slow at first. We again didn't have the knowledge, didn't know what was going on at the time. Sharon actually found herself now having to quit her job and basically spend more and more time helping her dad. And as things got continually worse, then we had to bring on other helpers to help. All the while, Sharon needed to be front and center to coordinate all the schedules, all the doctor's appointments, and also had to make sure everybody got paid because at this point,
Right.
he's not even able to do it. So when we look at finances and everybody goes, oh, that's so narrow focus. It's narrow focused if you let it to be narrow focused, but the minute you start thinking about ramifications, which is in his case, he was running the household. Now he can't. Who picks up that job?
Exactly.
And that becomes, when we talk about addiction, we all think of drugs as an addiction. Well, I got news for you. Gambling is a big addiction too. And
Oh, absolutely.
if someone's a gambler, you can't let them manage your household anymore. It's just not trustworthy. Well, what advisor sits there and goes, you know what? We have to train you now in order to run the household. And you tell me, have you seen anybody talk about that? My guess is very few, but we
Very.
do because we know that the minute you have an issue or you even detect an issue, right? That's when things change. And you know, Alzheimer's and dementia, it doesn't get better.
No.
And here's an interesting statistic I recently learned that people who are caring for somebody with Alzheimer's/, dementia, they tend 30% of them will die before the patient dies. Now,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Yikes.
and if you're caregiving at the age of 70, that number goes up to 60% will die before the patient dies. Now, who plans for that?
Nobody.
Not well, somebody does,
Well, I
fortunately,
think a
but
chief behavioral officer might,
well,
but I
so
will tell you, I don't see that title in very many organizations, Michael.
well, so I crafted it because I recognize through my journeys that a lot of the decisions we make are predicated on things that we were taught as a child or influenced by a traumatic experience or one very successful. A good example is if you come from a family who was divorced and all you ever heard about was the bickering about money, you may have internalize that says, wow, if I have too much money, I'm going to get into a fight and I'm going to get into a divorce. So I'm going to give it all away to charities and other things just so that I don't have that conflict. Well, the heart is speaking truth to power. But in all honesty, you have other people to worry about. And so when I come and I see, and one of the first things we do is look at budgets and I see unusual spending patterns, I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into understanding why.
Right.
Because I have an example that I do with some of my seminars where I go, who is the better advisor? The advisor who can get you 50 basis points, so that's a half of 1% more on returns, or somebody who changes your behavior and allows you to up your savings by 20%?
That's
And
it.
the answer is, if you look at the numbers, the person who works with the client to get them to do better decision making and better just caring about monetary considerations is going to have a much more profound and longer impact on their wealth because you're changing at the fundamental level of how they behave. And that is huge. We see it all the
Absolutely.
time where people go, oh, wow. So you mean I can save more? Yeah. Sometimes it's a hard um, process because not everybody has enough assets that they can, you know, start making those changes. But if you do it early enough, you can overcome, you know, early deficits can be made up over time. Zach made a good point where, you know, when you're thinking about, you know, recovery, or if you're a caregiver, some days you just hope and pray you just can make it through today, right?
Sure.
But finances don't work that way. If we only concentrate on today and tomorrow, we lose sight of the bigger picture. And so,
Right.
what I find is a powerful motivator for people is making sure that they have goals, right? The minute you give somebody a purpose that they buy into, all of a sudden saving for it doesn't seem so bad. But if you have no purpose and you have no aspirations whatsoever, it's like, oh, well, I might as well buy a fancy car
Yeah.
because I'm
I
not going to
do it.
be here for very long, right? So
Right.
providing hope and guidance through this process is huge. And one other thing that I would like to add to it is, as a advisor, my role and all our roles here is one, to be a trusted resource, but also to connect you to other resources. You know, your strongest allies aren't necessarily your family and friends. They're
Yes.
there for you, but you know, family and friends, they move away. They're not necessarily around to give you the help you need. One of the best things I think I do for my clients, members, is connect them. That's why you and I started talking, is because we're dealing with the same problems, but we
Yes.
coming at it from a different perspective. You need to have a team, and it's medical team, right?
Yes.
It's the caregiving team, and it's your financial team. And if we work together, yeah, we can help medical people understand their expenses and maybe detect changes in behavior that they should be aware of. I have always said that if you're suffering and it has a financial consequence, a good financial advisor will pick up on it because he will see what's going on in the accounts and be able to be a proactive. I'll give you a good example. I had a member who withdrew all his money from his IRA account.
Uh-huh.
And I called him and I asked him, I go, why did you do that? He goes, well, I was really nervous about the elections and I just wanted to put it aside. I said, well, never mind that I don't agree with that. My next question is, what are you doing with it and what do you plan to do with it? Well, after pressing him for a while, I actually found out that he withdrew it not because he was concerned, but he gambled it away. Right.
Oh
So
my
we see it.
God. But that's
We
right.
see it. We see it, right?
Yeah.
And we ask, and we're expected to ask. We do keep confidentiality. It's not like I'm going to call anybody else and tell them, uh-oh. But
Yes.
if we have a team of people going, well, that's another point of, you know, it's just another point in the diagnosis or the treatment that maybe none of them ever saw before.
Well, but Michael, that's why what we do is so important. And let me just say this to all of our audience. We are not ever in competition. Michael and I talked about this because we all do some of the same things. I am not a chief behavioral officer, but I do get into people's belief systems about money. But the idea is we want everybody to be with the good people. We want you to be with people that you trust. Okay. So we want to at least be a resource so that you can contact us, which is why we're all here. This is a collaborative effort. We are not in competition, which is something you rarely hear about in finance. I'll just say that from my 26 years. You talk about predators, Zach. I have seen some predators in our industry. But I will tell you this, Michael, understanding that you've gone to the next stage with the title Chief Behavioral Officer, having the implementation of understanding that it's based on somebody's belief system. I can tell you there isn't one person that I've ever spoken to that had kind of an skewed idea about money that has not hurt them on the long run. whether they say money grows on trees, whether it says the more money you have, the more problems you have. Everybody has something that's ingrained that says, this is how I feel about it. And they don't realize subconsciously they're making their decisions on that, number one. And number two, they don't have anybody to trust. So if you've got those two things working against you, it is very hard to create a plan for the future. And so being able to talk about that along with, let's call them the little bumps in the road, right? What are the little bumps in the road? Addictions or dementia, health conditions. Understanding that what you do need, like Michael said, resources and teams. You must find people you can trust that want to empower you and educate you. So tell me some more about this title, because when you say behavioral officer, how deep do you get into someone's personal life to be able to help them navigate all the bumps in the road?
Wow, that's a great question. So let me start with at a high level. One of the things that we do is we have a survey that we give all onboarding members, and it's a behavioral finance survey. What it does is it allows them to see what they do well and acknowledge what they don't do well. Now, working with one person, this, it helps me too, because when I understand a little bit more about their behaviors, I can tailor my comments in a way that they'll understand. People learn differently. Some are auditory learners, some are, touch and feel,
Yeah.
some are visual, right? But when you get the dynamics get very complicated when you're dealing with a married couple. And I can't tell you how many times I've had married couples in here and one person does all the talking and the other person sits in the back of the room and is almost like,
Non-existent.
And to me, that I can't abide by that, right? Because I'm
Right.
trying to help you both. When you give them both the survey and then you sit them down and you go over the strengths and weaknesses and you show them where they're complementing each other and where they're doubling down,
Mm-hmm.
it makes them understand a little bit more about, what, I do need her input, versus saying, I know everything, or you're taking too long and we got to make, decisions now, right? Sometimes
Right.
you need to take a deep breath. So that's where it starts, is
Okay.
in that survey that we do. Now, some of the things that we're thinking about doing going forward is, like, I've met a lot of people on this journey who have lots of different perspectives, one of which is, I'm going to call it proactive detection. So
Okay.
there are some tools that I've learned about, and while I can't share them yet because I'm still vetting them, I see the potential, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
potential is for us once a year to administer some of these tools and start looking to see whether or not there is a noticeable decline in cognitive abilities.
Right.
You can't always wait for someone to tell you they have them. One, they could be too embarrassed to speak of it. But if it gets too late and we don't do something about it sooner, then our choices are tied, because if you're no longer legally competent to sign documents, well, then whatever is the place to be. So early detection or early acknowledgement is key. The other thing that you mentioned that I think is really profoundly important is, not only do you have to trust the people that are on your team, you got to talk to them.
Absolutely.
and they got to talk to each other. I mean, if there is no communication, there is nothing but strife. And I learned this again through watching what my wife went through. At the end of the day, the legacy that should have been one of love and mutual respect turned into one of just divisiveness. And as of now, they don't even talk to each other. That's poor communication, right?
Sure.
We can't afford that. Now, when we were taking care of my mother, I have two brothers, and Zach will tell you we're all very different personality-wise, but we all get along, and
Yeah.
we don't fight over this stuff. We try to find solutions, and that only happens when we trust each other, which we do, but we also have to talk to each other. We can't
Yeah.
assume that the other guy, my brothers know what I know or know what I'm thinking. So we have to have conversations. And
Well, Michael,
the,
does that Does that mean that, because I think people need to understand the point that you made that was just so spot on, is when we're talking about a team, right? A team is husband and wife, right? If you're going to make a decision, learn how to communicate properly so that when someone comes to meet with you, one doesn't automatically say, well, he runs the house, because the house has many different levels of interpretation as to what needs to be done, when, with whom, what child does this, what child does that, who's going to take care of the utilities, who's going to take care of the home, and all that kind of stuff. But that team has to be solidified first. Then if you have those conversations, then you can bring in healthcare providers, you can bring in financial advisors, so that everybody has their place in the entire, I'm going to say, kit and caboodle of everything that needs to be figured out. Because if they don't understand each person's responsibilities, you can't hold somebody accountable to something when they don't feel like they get a chance to vote. Right. So what kind of healthcare providers do you pull in when you sit down and talk about, listen, I've spoken to you a couple of times. You were doing really well last year, but this year I'm talking to you and you don't know your address. Something is going on here. How do you have those very sensitive conversations to get people to understand, you know what? This is a time I might need to bring in some additional professionals to help, without making them feel like they're losing their independence?
That's a tough one, right? Because I am in no position to recommend physicians. I can recommend services. I can recommend you see a neurologist. I can recommend you take, a cognitive test. Sure. But I can't say go see this doctor or go to this, because that's inappropriate. I'm not conversant enough in all the possible treatments and modalities that are available. But what I can do is suggest that we have a conversation with your current physician. And, I'll start by asking, what does he know? Oh, we really haven't talked to him about it yet. I think we should.
Yeah.
Also, have you talked? Do you have an estate attorney? No, we don't. Well, I think we need to get you one, right? You got your family for sure. But then, you talk about, for example, the caregiver. Now, if you're paying someone to be that caregiver, well, that person's got to be in here. You mentioned the book Caregiver's Advocate. The chapter I wrote was about protecting elderly from fraud. Now, everybody immediately goes, oh, yeah, that's phishing, that's email scams, it's phone. True, but the bigger fraud is either from existing family members who just see this as an opportunity to take advantage. I
Yeah.
hate to say it, but people do. And also, you have to protect them from themselves. With my mother, towards the end, she was loved to watch TV. She didn't go out as much, so she would watch TV. And if she saw an interesting movie, and it said click here to do it, she'd click here, not knowing that she just paid maybe $9.99 for the movie, or maybe $24.99 a month to access the streaming content. And she watches 7 or 8 movies, and the next thing you know, her cable bill goes from $100 a month to $500 a month. Now, if no one looks at that, who's going to find it?
Right.
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 And they spend money on things that nobody needs, but they think they do. Oh, my kids love this kind of candy, and next thing you know, you go into the closet and they got 20 boxes of that kind of candy.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Right.
Look, growing old is hard, right? Growing old gracefully is even harder. Uh, and there are so many unknowns. I talk to a lot of advisors, and they talk about the retirement curve in terms of spending. And they go, well, the years after retirement, that's when your spending rate goes up. But after you hit about 80, then your expenses go way down. It's like, no,
Not so much.
that's not what you think. At 80,
Right.
medical expenses start kicking in as you become more frail, or just wear and tear on the body.
Or what
So
about helping your children, Michael? I mean, we're in a time now where children need help, and I'm talking about adult children, right? They're about to lose their home, or they had an addiction, or they're going through a divorce, or whatever. Seniors are the ones they reach out to first. Oh, mom, dad, I can't get a loan. Can I just borrow a couple $100,000 just to get over this? We
Oh,
have
just
seen
sign,
it,
or
and
just
they
sign
don't
here.
realize they can't get that money back. They are not getting income. So yes, I think you should support your children as much as you can. But if you don't have a long-term care policy, or you don't have a plan or something to not only keep you going, the continuity of the lifestyle you want at the same time of helping children, it does not mean, based on your time horizon, that you're going to need less money, because things are very out of sorts right now. Nobody really knows what tomorrow is going to look like. So when it comes to that, I totally agree with you when I hear people say, oh, don't worry, you're going to spend half of that. And then they have to go into a nursing home, or they have to go into an assisted care, which is more expensive than getting an apartment. Right. And so how do you have those conversations? Because those are interesting ones to have when you talk to somebody who says, oh, you know what, I've got a home, and so if I get sick, that's going to be enough. Well, if you have dementia, you could be on the average in a facility for 12, 13 years on the average. That's scary, and that is not cheap, right? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. So you made the point about um, you know, finances, and if we just look at the uh, one person's finances, we get a sliver of the picture. If we look at the family's finances, we get a bigger insight into the picture. And if we bring the family and children, and then we get even a more complete picture. Planning is about protecting what you have and transferring it, if there's anything left, to the next generation. So the first question you got to ask yourself is, well, what's the likelihood I'm going to have anything left?
Yeah.
So if we can answer that question, then we can worry more about, okay, how do we sock it away? How do we legally protect it? How do we pass it on to future generations? But until you know, and you never completely know, people can be diagnosed with Alzheimer's and they don't show real symptoms for another 15 years.
Yeah.
But if you have the diagnosis, well, do you really want to wait another 15 years and then figure out how to plan for it? Or do you want to go down that road now? Okay, discuss the options now, do the research now. Even if you don't need it today, we can start planning on identifying assets that we want to protect. If you're thinking, unfortunately, that we're not going to make it and he has to qualify for Medicaid, then you've got the 5-year look back you have to do in order to do that. So you can't wait. You can't wait to do this stuff. You got to get proactive. And
Right.
I think that's what we pride ourselves on is, yeah, we're snoopy, we're nosy, but we have a reason to be nosy, because we can't do our job if you don't tell us everything we need to know.
Yes.
I like to tell the story about my wife. She'll go to the doctors and she'll dress down buck naked in front of them. But if she goes to the accountant and he asks a question about her finances, it's hard to, very much so. So we all have to be cognizant of the fact that there's more than likely is going to be an elder care event that needs to be planned for. And we need to talk about it, and we need to start lining up the resources, or at least starting to do our research now. Because if we're going to change your estate plan, if we're going to change the way we leave money to others, if we're going to downsize, and if you, like you said, people go, I don't have to worry about this, I'm going to live at home. Okay, so what does it cost for you to prepare your house to live at home? Do you have safety rails everywhere? Do you need a ramp now because you're in a wheelchair?
Well,
Those
Michael,
are the ones that...
they're learning that tough lesson out here in California right now in LA. That people said, oh, my house is going to be there. Some of them didn't even have insurance. And so you've got to have a strategy that can encompass a lot of different smaller strategies in case things change. Or one that I heard recently, a client said, oh, my children will take care of me. Well, what I know, unbeknownst to her, one of them is getting ready to go through a divorce. It may not be what she thinks, right? And so again, bringing that trust into the entire family where everybody has all of that information is important, because that's what they've got to use to analyze what they have going forward. And it's just a very tough call right now, getting people to understand, yeah, I may look nosy, but there's a reason why I'm asking you these questions. I'm not doing it because I want to go talk to the person in the next cubicle or whatever. I'm doing it because I know the information that you give me is going to help me create a plan that's not only good for you, but one that you can actually follow, instead of going and telling, the advisor or the insurance agent or the financial professional just a piece and then get mad because it didn't work and you didn't tell us about all this other stuff on the left, right? That
Yeah.
all of a sudden sweeps in and takes everything over.
Well,
So I think
imagine trying to design a car and you have 7 engineers in different locations. And what we do is say, all right, you design the hood, you design the engine, you do the wheelbase, and you do the back. You're going to get a car that's never going to, each piece may be perfect, but when you try to put it together, it's a fail.
yeah. I just love that. And you know what? I'm going to give this question to Zack, because I know one of the things that he stands for is being able to get back on top, right? Understanding that where you are is not the end of where it could go. It could go into many different places based on what you're thinking about as far as who you are, your belief systems, and how all of that with the right team and the right family can create the life you want to live. Touch on that a little bit from the perspective of when you talk to people and you share your story, which is so impactful, why it gives them an understanding that, hey, I've walked this walk. I'm not just talking. I understand this. This is what I want to do. And I have some financial experience. So you should trust me because of my experience. How do you have that conversation and what does it look like?
I think one of the most difficult mindsets that people have about sharing personal details, whether it's the good, the bad, or the ugly about themselves, is we see a lot of success stories in movies and things like that where the trajectory is from the bottom to the top, right? So person starts here and they just go all the way up and they're just like big time successful. And
Right.
the reality is like the more you meet successful people or listen to podcasts and different people's stories and things like that, it's not this more often than anything. It's kind of
Some
all the
dark
way up.
nights of the soul, Zack. Some dark nights of the soul.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like most of the most interesting people that you'll ever meet have gone through some horrid situations. Whether
Oh
it's
yeah.
their upbringing, whether it's entrepreneurial ventures that fail, being broke and trying again and being broke again and then trying again and finally they hit it. I mean, there's all the stories of the different entrepreneurs and professionals who didn't make it until their 50s, 60s, and failed throughout their 20s, 30s, 40s. And
Yeah.
so I think it's a lot of what we're taught growing up is almost like these mistakes and these bumps in the road that we have are things that are to be to feel ashamed of and kept to yourself, instead of really it being a part of the whole picture for getting to wherever here is for you. That it's just a part of the journey, right?
Sure.
And it's a part of the story, and it's what makes you human. It's what also makes you more relatable. It was definitely tough. I mean, with certain things in my life, I mean, I definitely felt ashamed, and I kept them as a secret. And in the end, that really kind of like burned a hole in the soul, because you feel like you're, not a bad person, but you feel like you're broken, or you're defective, I think
Yeah.
is really the word I was looking for. And it's not necessarily true. And I found the more transparent about my own life and my own experience and things like that I've been, the more meaningful connections I've actually developed with people in general, and that they appreciate that kind of like sincerity and honesty, because most of us, about 99.9% of us are going to have bumps in the road, as
You have
we
to.
go through things. Correct. And it's not that straight shot from the bottom to the top. There's that's what life experiences are. That's how you learn. Like there's all kinds of things you would have never done properly if you didn't do it wrong initially, and get socked in the face and learn that you how you have to do it properly and get back up and keep going. Right. So I think that learning that we're all imperfect, and we all have our own journey and our own bumps in the road, and that those things are not something to be ashamed of, but something to be able to relate, maybe even be proud of, or at least own, own that that's a part of your life, is something that allows for, when you're having conversations with families suffering from whatever, dysfunction or illness that they're currently navigating, it makes that relationship and that trust that you talked about being able to develop, a lot more, a lot stronger, and the bond a lot more, tight. And, that's what enables someone to feel comfortable with, you talk about the connection and being able to communicate and talk about these things openly as a team, right? Like if, I played hockey. I mean, sometimes when you designed lines, it wasn't about putting the best player with the best player. It was also about chemistry, because you had to talk to each other when you're on the ice. You have to talk to each other when you're in the locker room. You have to, you have that kind of relationship, and that chemistry is what allows you to be successful. And when people, hear our story, and you share openly and you share transparently about what's going on, it creates that bond, and it gives, in those moments where something's going on in their life, and they would otherwise say, I shouldn't tell anybody about this because it's a bad thing, or it's taboo, or I'm going to look bad, or whatever, because we're open and transparent with our background and our own experience and things like that, and it's relatable. You hope that in that moment when they have a decision to make because something just happened in their life that they should be sharing with, their advisor or what have you, so that you can plan accordingly and adjust, the plan, in order to accommodate what just happened. That instead of them saying, I'm not going to call anyone to tell you about this, they're like, I trust these guys because of the story that they have. I'm going to pick up the phone and tell them about that. And that's what allows for the communication and the proper planning to take place. As they say, hope is not a good investment strategy, right? So just hoping that this thing will go away, or hoping that everything will work out, or hoping your kids will take care of you, or whatever that is, that's not a plan. No. That's not, you hope for the best, but you have to plan for the worst, right?
And let me speak to that, because I think there's a few things I want to unpack. Number one is, you can't tell everybody your failures. Okay. I mean, we'd like that. However, the more transparent you are, the more you will find your own tribe, right? There are going to be people that are going to put you down. They're going to put you down whenever that comes out. Don't use something that was a negative to keep you imprisoned. Let it out. Those who are going to love you are going to love you regardless. Just let it go. Number two, understanding that the road to success is full of many ups and downs, many ups and downs. And if you don't have them, that means you're not learning anything new. You have a very boring life, and you're not going to get any further than where you are. You must learn. And so part of the things that I'm somewhat disgruntled about with our education system is talking about failure as a negative. Failure means I need to learn this again. I need to get it better. It doesn't mean that you are a failure. It just means that what you were being tested on, you haven't fully committed to understanding how it works and what it means. And so when we go back and we're helping with people, because I do a lot of mentoring, and I explain to them, you can get upset with the circumstance, but don't get upset with you, because you got to go through the next circumstance and the next circumstance and the next circumstance. So understanding that life is full of all kinds of experiences. You can pick and choose whatever you want. Understand that they're all temporary. Whether you're really successful, there are people that are very successful financially, mentally, or spiritually, not so much, right? Having a lot of money and that's not making you happy, you did something wrong there because it's a tool, and you should be able to use that to enjoy and or create the life you want to live. But again, going back to Michael's point, it's got to be a team. And your first member of your team is yourself. So you have to be honest with yourself before you go to any financial advisor, any insurance professional, any financial professional, and say, I need help. I want help. And I'm going to agree to have you as part of my team so that I can get where I want to go. And by doing so, Michael and Zack have the resources to bring it all together for you guys. So I just want to say this, first and foremost, I can't believe how quickly the hour has gone. You guys have got to come back. Okay. Let me just say that you got to come back. And then I want to hear some more story about the Wolves, Zack, and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty exciting. I didn't know about the hockey, but I definitely want it. I like excitement. So that's something I want to hear. So, Mike and Zack, I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing such invaluable insights on aging, mental health, addiction recovery, and financial well-being. Your expertise and dedication to helping families navigate these complex transitions have truly resonated with our audience. So, before I close, I'm going to ask you each one closing questions. I'm going to start with you, Michael. What is the one key message you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Get help. Get help. Don't do this alone. There's no reason to do it alone. Please get the help you need and deserve, because if you don't, caregiving will kill you, or at
Yeah.
least cripple you severely, mentally and emotionally. So please get the help. If not from us, I have a policy that I try very hard to adhere to. If I can't help you, I will at least try to connect you to somebody who can. So ask for help. Don't be afraid. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. Get help.
Wonderfully said. Okay. So I'm going to go one more to Zack. Not going to leave you out. Zack, what final piece of advice or encouragement would you offer to those navigating the challenges of caregiving and financial planning?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is honestly just echoing what, Michael just said. I mean, it's it's ask for help. Don't do it alone. There's no reason to do something like this by yourself. It's, a heavy burden to carry, and, the team is everything, makes things a lot easier, more effective, more successful. But, being able to know that you need help, ask for help, and then actually take advantage of the help. It's like, you don't sign up for a therapist and then keep all the secrets of the things that you're doing, at home to yourself. But, there's no benefit in that relationship, right? You can't take advantage of it if you don't share the dark or the uncomfortable or, the whatever things that you're doing that maybe you shouldn't, and you're really there to get the help for. You want to be able to own that you need it, ask for help, and take advantage. And take advantage of it by being transparent and leveraging it for what it is, which is, a support system. There's a lot of good people out there. There's a lot of bad people, but if you turn off the news and and talk to people, there's plenty of good people that will not hold your head to the fire because there are things that you're doing in your life, that you shouldn't be, or whatever, or could be doing better. There's lots of people who just want to help, and the only way you're going to find that out is by being honest and transparent and open and vulnerable with someone to be able to get that kind of support and team system to be able to navigate what you're going through.
Forgive yourself so you can move forward, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
There is a sentence, that is resonating with the audience today, and that was, Zack, you made us aware we are imperfect people. And that's what makes us unique. And that is the value that we bring to our communities. So I thank you both for attending this amazing webinar. Great comments. We'll be sharing them with you both. And we're looking forward to having you here again.
Well, we appreciate.
We didn't even get into the caregiver stuff, Michael. That's a whole, I don't know. You guys might have to become a regular. I'm just thinking we might have to do something like that.
Well, we're here to help. Like Zack said, knowledge is power, and knowledge shouldn't have to cost you anything. So what we do because we care, and we want you to have this knowledge. More importantly, we want you to use it. Life doesn't have to be as hard as it is sometimes if we just allow ourselves to, pass off the baton to somebody else and let them take it for a little bit. A relay race is run and won by a team, and this, this is a long run. This is not a sprint.
Yeah, even God needed a day off, right?
Oh, I love you guys. I just love you guys. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to acknowledge our friends, the Jewish Free Loan Association, a true friend of the community. They're offering 0 interest, free fee relief loans to individuals and businesses affected by the recent fires, regardless of your faith and background, you guys, regardless. So don't let that stop you from calling them. Loans have been increased to $25,000 for individuals and $50,000 for small businesses. Individuals can qualify for loans up to $10,000 without a guarantor, okay? As long as, and I got to say this, as long as you have a 600 credit score or above. If you'd like to apply or donate to supply this incredible initiative, you can visit the screen. We have the information on the screen. You can go right there and, help California rebuild, because we're going to need all the help we can get. So again, I want to thank our incredible guests, Michael and Zack Lewis, and to all of you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Secure 65 Health Plans so we can continue bringing you the resources and conversations that matter most. Until next time, I'm Monet Swan.
I'm Alicia Alcano. And with us, we have magnificent Michael Lewis and Zack Lewis.
Stay happy, stay healthy, and stay golden. Net, take us out.
In light of the recent devastating fires in Southern California, we remain committed to supporting those affected. We want to take a moment to introduce our nonprofit organization and the vital assistance we provide to help individuals and families rebuild their lives. Collaborative Expansion Foundation, bringing people to truth through love and knowledge. We are a nonprofit organization. At Collaborative Expansion Foundation, we empower seniors by addressing their critical needs and fostering trusted relationships. We combat loneliness, financial insecurity, and access issues through education, community engagement, and support. Guided by our motto, no senior should enroll in Medicare with a stranger, we strive to ensure all seniors receive the care they deserve. Together, we create a caring, inclusive community.